Okay, welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Pride Business Forum at today's webinar. Today, we will have a closer look at transition in the workplaces according to the Czech legislation, especially after the recent decision of the Constitutional Court that abolished forceful sterilization of people undergoing transitions. It's not me who is going to talk. We have experts from Transparent, Victor and Georgia, who will present this matter. Transparent is one of our Pride Business Forum Fund grantees this year, and I'm very happy that they agreed to actually talk with us today. Pride Business Forum is focusing on transgender in workplaces for a long term. Many of you may know that we also have a toolkit fostering transgender talents in the workplaces, authored by Victor, actually. So those of you who haven't seen our toolkit, please, you can download it from our website. Before I give a floor to our guest speakers, I just would like to invite you for our future events. Those of you who are our members, you know that we are meeting on members meeting on 27th of November at Hilton Hotel. And those of you who are thinking of applying for our annual awards in 2025, mark your calendars in January. I think it's January 14th. We have a webinars that will talk about the application process and the changes. We actually have it in Czech first from 4 o'clock and then in English from 5:30 p.m. So mark your calendar and join us for those events. So once again, welcome, and without further ado, I'll give the floor to Victor and Georgia to walk us through today's topic. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Czeslaw, for the introduction of me and Georgia from Transparent. Let me share my presentation that will help me guide you through today's topic, which is navigating. Okay, I hope it works. Navigating transition in the view of the recent ruling of the Czech Constitutional Court that surely will have some impact on the situation of transgender people in the workplace. We will be talking about this in some detail. I'm happy to be here as a representative of Transparent. I'm the head of the organization at the moment, and I'm happy to be here also with my colleague Georgia, who is a legal expert, law student, former head of Young Pirates, and so on and so forth. She will join me, and she will discuss the legislation specifics of this ruling. But we will also have some time to talk about transitioning in general at the workplace and some of the aspects and instruments that you can find helpful, as they are also specified in the handbook that was presented or introduced by Czeslaw. You will also have opportunity to ask questions, so feel free to ask questions. You can raise your hand, you can write into the chat and Q&A section in the Zoom application. We will be happy to answer the questions as on the go when we speak. So please feel free to ask during the session. So in the beginning, I would like to mention that there are several specifics and factors that impact the situation of transgender people at the workplace. Of course, transgender people are a vulnerable group that is more prone to be at risk of discrimination, harassment. We are also going through some changes that cannot be hidden in a social role, self-presentation. Our identification documents are often in mismatch with our gender identity, which is also a very important factor. Physical changes that have implications in the medical, our medical healthcare situation, and also sick leave and so on, which is issue that also is relevant to the workplace. And also there's the situation of non-binary people, which is even more difficult because non-binary people are not recognized by the Czech official system. This is just to sum up some of the factors that impact the situation of trans people at the workplace. But what we will be focusing today on is this one, because this is actually the aspect that comes into play when we talk about the recent ruling of the Czech Constitutional Court. I hope that you have already heard of the fact that there has been such a ruling. We have to say that it is a groundbreaking ruling and even groundbreaking advocacy milestone that we achieved in the Czech Republic in terms of transgender rights, and it will impact all areas of our lives. And I will now give the floor to Georgia, who will tell you what the ruling was about and how it impacts the workplace. She will share her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor. I will quickly share my presentation, which I have laid out. Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name once again is Georgia. I'm a law student and I'm gonna present you with the outcomes of the constitutional ruling specifically for the labor legislation in the Czech Republic. So first of all, I have to talk about the previous legislative status that was before, and it is still technically now in force, because as we're gonna learn, the constitutional ruling, the Constitutional Court basically cancelled or deleted part of law, but it postponed the effectiveness of this change up until later in June of this year, in order to give the legislators the opportunity to correct any future legal uncertainty. Unfortunately, this has not happened yet, so this is why it is relevant to talk about the previous status, so we can compare what is going to change and where we are now. So, as the previous legislative status, Czech Republic is one of the last remaining and is still one of the last remaining countries that requires abusive medical procedures. Now, what does that mean? And what is the implication for labor law? It means that for a lot of trans people, transition is a long process that takes several years. And during that process, for most of the time, your identity doesn't match the official documents of that you have in your ID, which has several implications in labor law. First of all, there is this huge problem of potential unequal treatment during job selection process, because you have to eventually reveal to your employer that you are trans, even though if you are perfectly passable, if you are not, if you completely pass by visual and both by voice, you have to reveal it because your documents do not match your name. And there is also this issue of a birth ID number, which is in the Czech Republic, which basically you have to report. And this also is directly tied to your both medical and social security the numbers, which means that this leads to the fact that you will have to reveal this to your employer, likely even before signing of the contract, which means he can potentially then say, oh, but you're trans, I don't want to sign your contract. Obviously, he's not gonna say it in this way because that would make him breach of the labor law, but he can do it. And that's a bit unfortunate position for the transgender people. There is also the potential well-being issues regarding the evidence of personal data. Transgender people are on daily basis confronted with the fact that their official documents do not match their personal data, their like pronouns and their preferred names. And this has several implications in also in workforce, because, for example, not all IT systems of all companies are ready for this discrepancy between the official documents and preferred name. So that means that sometimes when automatic emails are generated and the employees are, for example, invited to meetings, the wrong name and pronouns are used. Now, some companies already reflect this, that they added a feature to the system which makes them able to change this. So they are referring to the person by their preferred pronouns. Unfortunately, not all companies, and especially if you're working for the state, it's sometimes very hard to make adjustments for this. So this leads to a potential discrimination at work, where you first of all, there is this well-being issue, and also a potential discrimination regarding the evidence, and also the fact that you have to sometimes reveal it, or you unknowingly tell everybody in work that, oh, this person is trans, because there is a discrepancy in names. And also the surnames of transgender people, recommended surnames, and sometimes with very this is a very difficult to explain in English. It's basically like there is a end of the surname is very typical for has to be gender neutral. Now there are ways to avoid this, but some transgender people indeed use this gender neutral surname version. And again, this is once again a potential for involuntary coming out at work and harassment and discrimination. So what does the constitutional ruling do with this? So the constitutional ruling basically does that a petitioner, which was a transgender man, said, hey, I want to do transition. I want to transition, but I do not want to go through this abusive medical procedure, which there are people who either don't want to go through this medical procedure, which is a completely reasonable requirement, and also, or they can't go through this procedure for some medical reason, because the procedure is very, very hard on your body, and some individuals, unfortunately, are not able to go through this. So, which in the current system, they are unable to transition, unfortunately. So the Constitutional Court found this against human dignity and current international standards, because as it is known in the legal community since 2017, there is a ruling of the European Court of Human Rights that this particular requirement of sterilization and abusive medical procedures, and surgery, is against rights to privacy and or right to private life, if you want to be specific. And therefore, the Constitutional Court said that this procedure is against the Czech law, and it abolished this the part of the law which requires this procedure. Now, what the Constitutional Court then said in the ruling is that it's up to the legislator to determine the future status, because now it is fairly uncertain, because the Constitutional Court postponed for this reason the abolishment of the procedure to June 2025, which is in a few months, and now it's up to the legislator to legislate on this topic and to decide how the transition should be done, because the system is currently not ready for to go smoothly. Unfortunately, the legislator is currently ineffective and silent, even though Transparent, and Victor can surely elaborate more on this, had made several attempts to contact the legislators, and there have been several discussions in the legal community about this. We still have not reached the stage where it would be certain that there will be a procedure implemented. So, but the Constitutional Court was aware that this might happen, so they put in kind of a half-baked solution. So if in case it would not go through, the transitioning would be based on a medical recommendation from the doctor. However, the current way the medical recommendation is set up in the Czech law, it works, or the medical certificates, it only works after the surgery which does the procedure. So this is a very, very problematic situation, because the legal system is not, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs is not ready for this change. Now, we are still quite early into the 1 year period, which constitutional cover, I mean, yeah, you can argue that it's almost half of the period, but there is still some time. But we speculate that that unfortunately the legislator will not be able to act. So when that happens, there is probably going to be some legal uncertainty. But if it goes through, and if, for example, the Ministry of Internal Affairs issues some directives to the authorities and to the legal offices, that yes, indeed, the certificate is going to be issued by the doctor, and it's going to be their sexologist, etc., etc. This probably doesn't even have to be in legislation. It would be nice if it would be clear, but it is probably going to work, and the Constitutional Court kind of counts on it to work. But there is still just so much legal uncertainty, and we cannot presume, and we don't like to presume what is going to happen, because it's just way too uncertain, and we do not, and the only interpretation we have is the interpretation of the Constitutional Court, but the interpretation of other courts can in practice can vary. It would in the end probably end up in the Constitutional Court's view, but we don't know when. So that's why we are kind of afraid of the June 2025 mark. Anyway, in the last slide, I would like to just briefly remark about the implications this has for labor law, because while it is definitely not perfect for transgender people, because there is still this requirement of some kind of medical procedure that you have to go through, whether it will be checked up by the doctor or by several doctors. We still don't know how much this checkup, how much will be required, because this has to be said in the legislation, which is currently not non-existent. But still, a lot of people who do not want to go through the surgery, but they have been on hormones for several years, will probably have a good shot of reaching for the correct gender marker under the official authorities, which improves their conditions in labor significantly, because they have a better option for the protection of their personal data, because suddenly the employer won't have to have the real gender marker and then the gender marker in the official documents, and it will be just one gender marker, and it will be just one ID, it will be just one ID number, and it will be just one name. It will ease up a lot of administrative dealings that the employers who do take the extra step and they do recognize that the Czech law is very, very unfriendly on this, and they do have this double evidence, they will now have their job so much easier. It will also mean the elimination of unnecessary discrimination in application procedure, because the employer will no longer have a reliable or semi-reliable way of getting the identity of the transgender person, which will benefit them, because there is no risk of unnecessary discrimination regarding the job application procedure. And also, as I've mentioned in the previous page, no random telling to your employers by accident that your colleague is trans. So, and also like probably improvement with well-being, because again, the employer won't have to see all the signs that remind him of the fact that he or she still has that name. And this seems like a little, like this is hard to imagine for non-trans people, but it is very, very big deal for, you know, transgender people, because it's something that you do see every day, and it reminds you of your identity every single day, every single hour. And it's not just when you go to a post where you have to present your ID, but it's also like every day at work and every day at school also, for example. But we are here to talk about work, not school. So it would mean a lot of good implications if it goes the way we want to. And once again, we don't really have a final answer on this, because we just don't know how the courts and how the Ministry of Internal Affairs is going to interpret the data and the ruling of the Constitutional Court with the proposed legislation, which is currently being debated, but it's not even in Parliament yet. It's just, I think it's only in like between the ministries. So yes, that is all for me. If you have any questions, I will slowly hand the floor down to Victor, which will continue with the process of transition.
So, well, we can still stay and talk about the topic of this Constitutional Court ruling a bit more, because I think you just got a lot of information from Georgia, and very unfortunately, while it will definitely help some people who have already embarked on the process, and it will be easier and more accessible to get legal gender recognition for people who previously didn't have the chance, there still will be a lot of people who will be reliant on the medical process, some medical recommendation or note. We don't know what the form will be. We are in a lot of uncertainty. So there still will be, unfortunately, some conditions, most probably, and the form of which we cannot now predict. So in terms of the mismatch that I mentioned earlier of between documents and the gender identity and the self-presentation, we still have to count with the situation that this will still be existing. So there still have to be kept the possibilities and the procedures to somehow support those whose legal name and legal gender marker is different from their preferred name and from their true gender identity. So we will still be kept trapped in this ambiguity that we are now. And I will mention what Transparent is trying to do in this process, because our main goal is to achieve self-identification or self-determination, as we call it, which means to separate the medical process from the legal gender recognition, from the administrative process, which means that there shouldn't be any medical note, medical recommendation, or any medical procedure such as sterilization or hormonal treatment to be a condition or prerequisite for legal gender recognition, for changing gender marker or changing administrative gender or sex, because this makes sense not only to us as transgender diverse people, but also to medical specialists who are also saying that in their public statements or their official statements, the medical experts say, yes, these two processes should be separated. And if we reach at some point in the future this situation, then it would be much easier for you as employers or HR specialists to navigate this situation, because the process will be fast, accessible, and transparent, which are the three requirements for the legal gender recognition in line with the highest human rights standards. This is, for instance, the situation in Germany now, because Germany has newly introduced this self-ID system, and it is the 12th country in Europe to do so. So in some countries, it's been existing for some time already without any issues, and it's the simplest way to deal with the situation. It would help not only employers, but schools and all areas of lives of transgender people. So that was just briefly from me. And now you have space for questions to Georgia about this legislative issues. We have a question here in chat. What can we do for now as trans-friendly employers to help mitigate these issues for trans employees while staying within the letter of the law? Is there any movement on recognition of non-binary people? What are the implications of schools? Well, so we have three questions in one. So first of all, I think Georgia might address the first one. So what to do, how to help employees and still be within the confines of the law?
Well, there are several things that the employees can do. First, they can build the system that has the evidence of both their preferred name and preferred pronouns and preferred gender marker, and the one in the evidence, the evidence, the official evidence, I would say. Because obviously for the communication regarding the state, you still need to present the officially assigned gender marker and names. But for any internal communications within the employer, it is absolutely fine to use pretty much anything, and ideally the preferred name. So that is I would say, the biggest step that the employees can do, and it's completely legal. And many employees, as we have elaborated, already do this. And this can be done not just in employer, not just within the labor law, but also in schools. And many schools again do this, and they are trying to address their pupils and students with their preferred names and pronouns. And it's working. It's completely in line with the law. It's even counted on in the civil code, so it is fine. And it really goes much same for the non-binary people, because the only difference there is the the third letter in the gender marker. And this, once again, you can have this in your personal evidence, and you can just ask the person for their preferred pronouns and address them with their preferred pronouns. Obviously, there are going to be some more complications regarding the accommodations with bathrooms, but again, there is nothing that says that the bathrooms can be gender neutral, so they can be. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the most what the employers can do. And yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. Well, thank you, Georgia. Yeah, I'm gonna also when I go on with my next presentation, I will briefly address this as well. But there's no movement or practical steps or anything going on in terms of recognition, like legal gender recognition of non-binary people. That's what I want to say. Given the fact that these 5 years or 7 years that we spent trying to say that it is wrong to sterilize people, and the legislators themselves didn't do anything about this, and they didn't understand these arguments. We definitely want to focus on recognition of non-binary people, but given the conservative mindset that is still prevalent in the political representation, we find this very difficult to open this issue now. Yeah. So basically, it is a plan, but in the future, not at this point. And the implications for schools, it is important to note that most probably legal gender recognitions will remain achievable or accessible only from the age of 18, because this is a controversial point. We are pushing for 15 for legal gender recognition without the surgery required. However, there is a lot of talk about this now, and there are conservatives who just don't want to hear about lowering the age of legal gender recognition to 15. So it will most probably remain at 18. So the situation at schools will remain the same, which means the only change that children and young people can now achieve is change of the name to gender neutral, but they don't have access to fully transitioning legally to the gender marker that they want, and changing their name to the form of purely a masculine name or a feminine name, and changing the birth number. So they will probably stay trapped in this situation even after this comes into effect.
Yeah, Victor, thank you. Victor is absolutely right. I just maybe want to add maybe a little bit of hope at the end. That doesn't mean the schools can't do anything about it. It means that they can still, try to accommodate the transgender students. They can still address them by their preferred name, by their preferred pronouns. And we have seen a lot of good practice from schools regarding this. Unfortunately, there is really no way of enforcing this, and the protection of transgender kids in schools is difficult, to say at least.
I have good news that the Ministry of Education is about to issue guidance for working with transgender students and inclusion of transgender and gender diverse students at schools towards the end of the year. So this will help. It's not legislation, but it's a indication for schools for how to navigate this situation. So this will definitely help. So if you have some other questions, if you don't, I will ask Georgia to stop sharing the screen, and I will go on. You can definitely ask questions, and or in the Q&A, either in the Q&A or in the chat while we speak. And I will just add on to what Georgia said by now revealing actually the identity of the transgender person who was the petitioner against the Czech Republic in the Constitutional Court case, who won the Constitutional Court case. His name is Gilbert Noem. He's a transgender man, and very recently now he's also a person with his story within a campaign that is called in Czech Marathon psaní dopisů by Amnesty International, In English, I think it's Right for Rights or something like that. You might have heard about this kind of campaign. It means that Amnesty International is sharing a story of a person who is in an unfavorable situation, whose rights are breached, and here it says it's inhumane conditions for legal gender recognition in Czechia, and why they continued to talk about this case even though it was won. It is because, as Georgia said, there's no change in the legislation yet. Although he won the case, he basically cannot even now change his gender marker. He has to wait, and we don't know what the conditions will be. So basically, for him, he's still trapped in a situation which is not acceptable, and we are all, as trans and gender diverse people, in the same situation because the uncertainty is so huge that we don't know what will happen as of June next year, as Georgia said. So you can even join the campaign by writing the letter to support the rights of transgender people. And Gilbert Noam, you can find out more on the website of Amnesty International Czech Republic or on our website of Transparent. So this is basically just to say that, because we kept Gilbert's identity secret for a long time because of like the media and haters, which usually flock in huge numbers and write hateful comments. So we wanted to protect him. However, now he decided to come up with his face and support this campaign. So feel free to support us as well. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions related to this topic, I might move on to a very good and handy instrument that you can read more about in the handbook that Czeslaw mentioned. That was published by the Pride Business Forum, and it's downloadable from the website, and it's the transition plan. Why are we talking about the transition plan? It's a very handy instrument for both the employer and the trans employees on navigating the transition at the workplace, not only in terms of legal documents and the official registration, but other parts that you might not even think of in the beginning. And why it is helpful, because it reassures to some extent the employees that you are somehow ready to guide them through the process, that you are ready to support them, to be there for them, and that there is some path that they can even imagine that will unfold in front of them, which for many transgender people is very helpful to see the light along the way. So this might help you, this transition plan might help you. What is really important to say in the beginning is that the trans person should always be involved in drafting the transition plan. The trans person should be the director of their own stories, that they should hold the reins. So this is always important to note. And it is a sort of an agreement between the employer and the trans person, and but at the same time, it's good to understand that it's not a binding thing, that each step will happen as planned, because as we know, in our lives and in the lives of transgender people, not everything goes as planned. So it is subject to change, but it is a proof of will to somehow collaborate and support each other on the way, and inform each other on the way. So what this transition plan can or maybe should contain, the timeline and the milestones. I will talk about that, these specific steps later. Communication strategy, communicating the topic or the situation to the team, but also not only internally, but also externally to clients, business partners, and so on. Interaction with third parties, which is a part of this communication strategy. Then change of personal data. That's the issue that we already discussed now. What is important and how and where in which respects the data can be changed, and for employers who use some kind of dress code, uniforms, and so on and so forth. This might be a little thing that could also be addressed in the transition plan. What is important to say is that the timeline and milestones, as I said, should be flexible and preliminary in the sense that the waiting periods, because we are still reliant on doctors, appointments, administrative processes of the Czech state, and so on and so forth. So we don't know how fast these things will go, but it's good to outline informational milestones if we are going to inform third parties or some stakeholders at what stage. Administrative milestones, meaning which data or which information, which official information will change and when, or might change and when, because as Georgia already mentioned that, for instance, the name is not changed at this point once, but 2 times. And at the same time, even the first form of the name might not be the same as the preferred name. So basically you are in a situation where you should be discussing this with the employee and what is the requirement of the state versus the preferred name, and then reflect that in the processes and the documentation. And last but not least, also medical milestones, if they are required or desirable by the employees. So this is also good to know, because this can be a situation where the employees have an extra burden on themselves, and it can entail start of hormonal treatment, hormonal therapy, and then surgical treatment that also needs some time of work for recovery, and just to make sure that you are on the same page with the employee, and know or somehow know also for your own benefit what can be expected that the process or the person will go through. Then the second step is the communication strategy. First thing that you know, confidentiality and consent is always very important. It's always very important to know that gender identity is also a confidential information. So once you know it as part of your profession or your role in the company, it is not a thing to be disclosed to others. So this reassurance as part of the transition plan is also very important, because this is a reassurance or information that the employee is really waiting for or looking for to hear and to know how this will be treated. Then using the name and the pronouns, finding out what is the preferred name, what is the preferred pronoun, also in face-to-face to the legal documents and official documents, and then planning out the internal communications and external communications. So internal communications with your work team and colleagues, or the work team of the person and colleagues. This has several specifics. Of course, the employer shouldn't assume that this should be on the shoulders of the person themselves. They should offer some kind of help, but listen to what the employee needs, which form of communication is desirable. And then external communications to clients who come into communication or contact with the employee, and business partners. This might be also a specific in a way that also the confidentiality should be taking into consideration, that any kind of communication towards clients and business partners should be professional, using correct language, and concise, not disclosing unnecessary details about the situation of the person, and also pointing to the business's commitment to inclusion, diversity, and so on and so forth, to make sure what the framework is. And it's always helpful for the colleagues and the work team to provide some contact contact for questions if they have some more questions or concerns, to be able to deal with that or address these concerns from both the work team and the clients. Last but not least, awareness raising trainings. You can always ask for some workshops or trainings for your team that might help raise awareness in your team or in your company. And the issue that we talked about already in the previous or in the first part of our session was the change of personal data, as Georgia said, where the legal name will remain or stay the same, is the official state-related registers and administrative documents, including social and healthcare insurance, and the number, birth number, and the payroll. However, this doesn't have to. So, of course, you have IT systems, not one, but many systems that are interrelated. In some of them, this writes through, you have to use the legal name, but wherever you can, please use the preferred name and the gender marker. There are many ways to do that, or several ways to do that. It always depends on the system, the specifics of the systems that you use. Some companies are trying to change even the possibility to change that. However, usually it's there has to be some kind of other option that you have to use, for instance, a note, a comment that you can use, or even establishing or opening a new profile for the person under their preferred name, and several other options. Any informal documents, internal communication can always use the preferred name. You are totally in line with the law if you use preferred name. Even you can use the preferred name in legal employment contracts, because the preferred name is considered a pseudonym, which is protected by the civic code, as the Czech civic code, as Georgia said, if the pseudonym is known to all parties who are a part of the agreement. So basically, now we got back to the same issue or topic that we talked about in the beginning, because we find this is one of the most crucial things to navigate at the workplace. And unfortunately, we cannot tell you, yes, everything will change as of 1st of July 2025, and you will no longer do this, to track communication. Unfortunately, we don't know what the situation will be. Most probably there will still be requirements, some requirements that will prevent us transgender people to use the preferred name legally as soon as we want to. So there will still be people who will go by their preferred name but have legal name registered in the official documents that will not match their preferred name, and you will have to deal with that still. Basically, and last but not least, it's good to make sure in the transition plan that you regularly check in with the person to find out if anything has changed or there's some progress in, for instance, the milestones. Offer support systems or persons who can help and support the person, suggest some support services, for instance, that are existing in Czechia or community organizations, and be there to deal with challenges on the way during the transition. For me, I will just want to refer you to the handbook that you can download. The name is Fostering Trans Talent in the Workplace, where you can read about more specifics of the situation and give you a more broad and comprehensive picture of what it means to be trans or gender diverse in Czechia. Here I will stop sharing, and I think we have maybe some questions or comments in the Q&A. So what's the difference between pseudonym and preferred name, please? Can we arrange employment contract with pseudonym? Georgia, if you want to maybe say something more, I can try to.
Well, you can. You can, because it has the same level of protection, but just be aware that everybody has to be aware of the pseudonym, because while the pseudonyms are generally protected in like civil contracts and in generally in like the private law, you can arrange most stuff unless you like weigh in more into like one, and unless you would create a substantial disadvantage to one party. Just be aware that in communication with like the state, this has to be explained, and it is and you have to be aware of the explanation will be necessary. So just be aware of that, and it should be okay.
Yes, I will only add that it's always good to consult your legal department around that. But we have now an analysis from the Office of the Ombudsman, where they said yes, also for transgender students, it is completely in line with the law to use pseudonym because it's protected under the Czech Civic Code. For contracts, it has to be known to everybody. So you have to, know that this is this identifies the person themselves for these contracts. And we have some more question, and the question is, do you know what the process looks like in Germany for self-identification? Yes, it has just started. Self-ID you can apply to I don't know what specific is the administrative process. However, you can apply. There is a lead time of I think 3 months that you apply, but your application will remain pending for 3 months, so you can change your mind, which is some kind of like a safeguard that they introduced, that you should have some kind of a window to, like if you change your mind, you still have the 3 months to do that. And then if you still want to go forth with it, they process it after 3 months. So this is one of the safeguards. And there's another safeguard that I think you can only change your gender marker once a year. That's another safeguard that they introduced with that. However, there's no medical procedure or medical note or recommendation from a doctor, which was the case before August this year.
I will only add that the law is in force since 1st of November, 1st of November. So it's very, very recent.
Mm-hmm. And they even had a big conference to introduce this in Berlin recently. So basically, this is something that was also groundbreaking for them. And even in Germany, you have the third gender marker. So basically, their legislation is very progressive and something that we can follow suit, hopefully. Okay, we have some more. Okay, thank you. Yeah. We have some space for some more questions if you have some. So hopefully we gave you some answers to the question. There are several scenarios that we will closely observe what will happen. However, we still have to be prepared for the situation that is not really 100% favorable to transgender employees.
Just bear with us. It will be it will be very interesting few months.
And definitely what I want to ask is to really raise awareness if you can in your teams, support us, because we can see that there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of myths out there. And there are elections coming up in Czechia, so we will have a lot of debate. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that transgender people will be a part of the debate and not in a good light. Also in relation to this situation that, or this uncertainty, this legal uncertainty. So we are very happy for everyone who is an advocate for our rights and ally, because we will need you as allies. So if you don't have any more questions, you can always contact us at Transparent. We have a website. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and other social media, but definitely follow Pride Business Forum, and you can contact them also for more information. If you need that, we are happy to give you consultations and deal with specific situations, which we are already doing. We give recommendations and advice to companies how to navigate the situations in their specifics of their business operations. And yeah, so we can continue the communication if you need to. And thank you for your attention.
Yes. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you for being with us, and see you some other time. Have a nice evening.